So welcome everyone to another series of our Global Employability Expert Series. This is the webinar that Virtual Internship brings to you about employability topics. And I'm very excited to be hosting today's webinar, and we have a really interesting topic. Let's discover what that is. Today's topic is citizenship at work, exploring different ways to assert your power in the workplace. And this is brought by Iris C. Gutierrez Berrios. And before we go into our topic today, let's remember how the dynamic work works. You can definitely share anything on the chat. Please share your name, your pronouns, your city, your country, and what is your main career goal today. We want this to be a conversation, interactive, so please share any questions and comments on the chat. We are recording this session, so later on we can share it with other people. If you don't know yet, we have a YouTube channel where you can subscribe and find more interesting content and ask any questions you may have. If you have specific questions about your program, you want to send a message to your IM. So what is who is our speaker today, right? Let's introduce our speaker so we know who she is. So it is C. Gutierrez Berrios is an educator, racial healing facilitator, and movement attorney with expertise in immigration and cannabis laws. She originates from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and identifies as a queer woman of color. She has been involved in matters related to human rights for over 14 years. In that time, Iris has obtained the insights of developing a healing-centered approach to legal services. She is expertly skilled in program creation, management, development, and oversight, focusing on accountability and ethics. Her clients are in different locations globally. Based on her extensive experience, Iris also speaks to both the individual issues as well as the complex intersectionality that occurs throughout our diverse society. So our speaker today, she has lots of experience, and therefore she brings a really interesting topic, which is in today's webinar, we will be discussing the world, the workplace, and our individual and collective roles within it. It is geared at recognizing discretion and power to act depending on citizenship or other status, gender, papers, LGBTQIA+, community, ability, etc. Inclusion and belonging means to calibrate between the realities ourselves and how it relates to power in the workplace and life. So thank you very much, Iris, for being here today.
Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm excited to be spending this time with you today. Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with a quick tech check. We want to know who you are, so if you haven't, do share your name, pronouns, and what is your career goal for today. Tech check means this is going to be a more interactive kind of training and session, so please do feel free to check your camera, your audio. I definitely would love to talk to faces rather than little black squares. Your microphone, check if you can move between different links. And there are some links on the chat for you to try that with, because we want you to engage with the material so that you're left with lifelong opportunities for even more learning and the possibility of engaging at work and everywhere you are in life. Thank you so much for being here today. And then during today's webinar, so next slide, we're going to talk about a number of different things. Mariana, I see you. We understand that different people will have different things that they are in. So don't worry, you're in a public space. You don't feel like sharing your microphone or the video. Absolutely understandable. No judgment. We just really want to make sure that that space exists for those people who are interested, willing, and able to kind of show their faces and show their voices if they want to participate, etc. So today's webinar, Citizenship at Work, exploring different ways to assert your power in the workplace. We're going to talk first about, our welcome, which we just completed. And then we're going to do like a little bit of a ground setup for our time together, as well as a grounding exercise. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what are the learning objectives for today. And mainly we will be talking about boundaries, discretion, and power to act, which does include a citizenship question that we have built for you, so that we can then end on a more ideal mentality of what are we going to do next? What are we going to take this training next to? And that's for all of you to kind of seed and cultivate and grow. Next slide. So we're going to first start with these 7 core assumptions. See these kind of like as starting points, like a little bit of rules, if you may. And they're assumptions, 7 core assumptions. They're used in peacemaking circles. And there's 7 of them. They are credited to Kay Pranis and Carolyn Boyce Watson. The first one is the true self in everyone is good, wise, and powerful. 2, the world is profoundly interconnected. 3, all human beings have a deep desire to be in a good relationship. All human beings have gifts, and everyone is needed for what they bring. Everything that we need to make positive change, it's already here. Everything that we need to make positive change is already here. Human beings are holistic. We need practices to build habits of living from the core self. I'm going to drop those 7 core assumptions on the chat because I think it's so important. I recently discovered them and it feels like such a great assumption to live by, such a good set of assumptions to live by. You can search this and it's pretty good information out there on this. Next slide. And then these are our touchstones. I'm going to go through them for you. I'm going to have you read the line that calls your name, and I'm going to read you kind of the description. So there's 10 touchstones, and these are kind of what is establishing, right, our ground rules for this conversation for us today. So if anyone is willing to read out loud from the slide? You may raise your hand or unmute yourself.
Do we have anyone who wants to read the slides?
Hi, I'm gonna read the slides.
Okay.
So number 1, be 100% present, extending and presuming welcome.
Set
2,
aside. So I'm going to expand on each one after you're done, okay?
all right.
Set aside the usual distractions of things undone from yesterday, things to do tomorrow. Bring all of yourself to. We all learn most effectively in spaces that welcome us. Welcome others to this place and this work, and presume that you are welcome. Anyone else want to read?
Can you listen properly, because my screen went black, so I'm not sure what you're. Can you see? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and can you see everything okay?
Yes.
Okay, because I went black, so I don't know what just happened.
Is it,
Yeah.
Wilawan, is that you wanting to read? Does anyone else want to read? Because otherwise I'm going to call on you back on you, Serena, if you don't mind.
It's okay.
All right, let's do it. Listen,
Yep.
do number 2 and I'll do the explanation and we'll do each one, okay?
Okay.
Sounds good.
Listen deeply.
Listen intently to what is said. Listen to the feelings beneath the words. To listen another soul into life, into a condition of disclosure and discovery, may be almost the greatest service that any human being ever performs for another. Listen to yourself also. Strive to achieve a balance between listening and reflecting, speaking and acting. So those things that are coming up for you as we go through this, note them. Don't try to fix them or correct them. Right now we're just trying to build a little bit of awareness. But do come back to those things later on.
All right. Number 3, always by invitation.
This one's very important and we want you to really engage with this training. So feel free to, I want you to get comfortable. We're doing this before we get into the material so that you start to get a little bit comfortable with like unmuting yourself, getting your face on the screen, but also it's never share or die. You will be invited to share in pairs and in this larger group. And the invitation is exactly that. So you will determine to the extent to which you want to participate in our discussions and activities.
Number 4, no fixing.
Each of us is here to discover our own truths, to listen to our own inner teacher, to take our own inner journey. We are not here to set someone else straight or to help right another's wrong, to fix or correct what we perceive as broken or incorrect in another member of the group.
Number 5, suspend judgment.
Set aside your judgment. By creating a space between judgment and reactions, we can listen to the other and to ourselves more fully, and thus our perspectives, decisions, and actions are more informed.
Number 6, identify assumptions.
Identify assumptions. Our assumptions are usually invisible to us, yet they undergird our worldview, and thus our decisions and our actions. By identifying our assumptions, we can then set them aside and open our viewpoint to greater possibilities.
Number 7, speak your truth.
Say what is in your heart, trusting that your voice will be heard and your contribution respected. Your truth may be different from, even the opposite of, what another in the circle has said. Speaking your truth is not debating with, or correcting, or interpreting what another has said. Own your own truth by speaking only for yourself using I statements.
Number 8, respect silence.
Silence is a rare gift in our busy world. After you or another has spoken, take time to reflect and fully listen without immediately filling the space with words.
Number 9, maintain confidentiality.
Create a safe space by respecting the confidential nature and content of the discussions we've held today. What is said in the circle remains there.
Number 10, when things get difficult, turn to wonder.
When things then get difficult, turn to wonder. This is really important one, so I'm going to repeat it again. When things get difficult, turn to wonder. And if you find yourself having a difficult time in life, I invite you to turn to wonder. But also, especially today, if you find yourself disagreeing with another, becoming judgmental, shutting down in defense, I invite you to turn to wonder. I wonder what brought her to this place. I wonder what this teaches me. I wonder what he's feeling right now. and we sit with silence. Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so what questions do you have before we begin? Any questions or concerns? All right, so let's move on. We're going to engage with this light bulb exercise, which we're going to try and mimic to our breathing. So we're going to do exercises of 4 in, hold for 4, let go for 4. Some people have different lung capacity than I do, so I can do 4, 4, and 4. If you can do 6, 6, and 6, that would be great. What's best is a practice of 8, 8, and 8. So like you take it in for 8, take it in for 8. Hold it for 8 and then let go for 8. So I'm gonna mimic the 4, 4, 4 one because that's the one that I can do. But please do what works best for you. And the goal really is to ground ourselves in this work right now, today.
Shall I press play?
Yes. So you're gonna breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, and you let it go. You let it in 1, 2, 3, 4, and you let it go 2, 3, 4. We're gonna do it one more time. Breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Let go 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's get going, okay? Next slide. All right, so our essential question for today is how can you apply your discretion, which is your power, at the workplace, okay? Next slide. Our learning objective for today is to start recognizing the diverse workplace that exists in a globalized world and your role in it. Next slide, we're gonna jump into a fun, quick Jamboard session, and we're gonna come back to this Jamboard throughout. And the goal really here in this first question is to test what is discretion for you? What is discretion? And then I'm gonna first illustrate how you would use the Jamboard. The link, I've dropped it on the chat. And to use it, it's gonna look like this. Please confirm that you see my screen.
Yes, I'm seeing your screen.
It's gonna look like this. You are gonna have this panel on your left. It gives you the option to a laser, which obviously you're not using. You're gonna stick with either the text option so that you can write, and you can switch the size based on these selections here on top. And what I found is easiest is to do a sticky note, which is that little icon over there. You can add as many as you want. You can also change them in color. So the question for this round is about discretion. What is discretion for you? So I would love for you to go visit this Jamboard and enter what discretion is for you. I'm going to give you a 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. And then you're going to hear the alarm go off. At the end of the 3 minutes, we are at 25. We're going to go until 28 or around that time. I'm going to set some music, and please do include what is discretion for you.
What is discretion for us? Nice question. What is discretion?
Example, yes, I can certainly give out an example. An example would be, actually, if you can share, no, but these would be examples.
Are you seeing some answers, Edith? Can you?
Here are some examples. So you get it's a subjective meaning, you can give it a definition like power, ability to do, or you can go to the dictionary and give me that. It can be whatever, but it would be here.
Hello?
Yes, thank you, Emma. Thank you so much for participating today. Thank you so much for being here. Did you see that example?
Mhm.
Sorry. Oh, all right. So we got a number of responses. So if you could go back to the PowerPoint.
Yes.
So we got a number of this responses here on the Jamboard. We are on the next slide. And we learn from the Jamboard that discretion is professional good relations with others, and addition of information to certain discussed topic, and a set of boundaries on a given or research topic. So that was what you guys said. This is amazing, because as you can see from the screen, this is not at all what was there. So this allows us to see and build on the fact that this is also discretionary, right? So just like this is discretionary and it's subjective, the word discretion itself is that thing that is that flexible kind of term that can give you access to additional information about this topic, that can also give you access to professional working good relationships with others. And it does establish a space for you to have access to a set of boundaries and establish a set of given or research topics. It's also the right or ability to decide something, and that power or ability that we have to do or not to do something. And clearly it has many different meanings, but in our practice, discretion refers to that power or ability that we have to do or not to do something, and noticing, right, that not doing something is an action as well, and that failing to do something also is an action. And discretion is that therefore foundational to what we do at Good Data Videos and Company, because it is an important word, discretion, that we should all know and definitely employ in our day-to-day life, because government and offices and all these other spaces are using those terms, so why not us? This is especially true if we're interested in informed actions that inspire long-term growth, including informed decision-making. So discretion is the power that people have to do or not do something. So at the most basic level, it is that underlying authority or power that we have. And then some examples are when you decide to get in the way to calm down an incident with the police, or when you decide to pick up the trash you shamefully missed on the floor, or when you pick someone else's trash from the floor, or even when you stand up, break silence, and or interrupt an injustice that you're witnessing. So while discretion can be perceived as this complicated activity or action, it does not need to be. It is fundamentally our authority to do something, anything, in its discretion. Then that gives us the power to act. And then the question becomes, what are you doing? What are you going to do with your own discretion? Next slide. So this brings us to boundary setting. Shout out to Luis Diaz, my friend, who is a licensed clinical social worker, for drafting this resource on boundary setting. He drafted an article. I came up with the image. Yes, I should probably give him access to this infographic now based on this work. Boundary setting can also sound a lot like negotiation or maybe even a social agreement. And why does this happen? It's because you cannot take all of the problems. You're not responsible for others' actions, thoughts, etc. And accountability is key. So you need to let people be accountable for their own growth, including your own as an individual. So how does that relate to work? Of course it relates to work. It relates to work because things happen. Things we're doing remotely or not, across very different time zones, and because for many of us this work is different than anything we have ever done before, the work at times may become difficult to manage professionally, physically, or emotionally. So this means we must be kind and patient with ourselves and each other, and we must be accountable to ourselves and the team. And this is what boundary setting does. We want to encourage you to communicate your needs. We believe that we are equipped to accommodate around you and refuse then to decide or make decisions for you. We want to provide options and the tools for long-term informed decision making. So this means that boundaries are essential. And a boundary is basically that limit that you establish by a person to protect physically or mental well-being. They are established with other people to communicate a sense of comfortability, respect, and expectation, and shows what behaviors you're willing to accept from others. They will look different for everyone, as boundaries are subjective in essence, and setting boundaries is not always easy, but it is a skill, which means that it gets easier as you practice. So it's important to listen to your feelings, right? Because when your boundaries are closed, or our boundaries are crossed, these feelings of stress, anxiety, guilt, and some other uncomfortable emotions, you might not even be able to name it because we've been so numbed by the systems that we live in, but these uncomfortable emotions may arise. And it's important to recognize these uncomfortable feelings because they let us know a boundary needs to be set or reestablished to protect ourselves. So setting boundaries shows people how to treat you. And additionally, healthy boundaries have various benefits, including creating meaningful relationships, good mental health, and decreases the chances of burnout. And next slide. And this brings me to the cycle of plantation capitalism. And this is the economic system that depends on free work, even from the most well-meaning people. For instance, GBNC, Gutierrez Betios and Company, runs with the support of 21 volunteers. So why does this happen? Why can't the system we currently live in afford to compensate everyone? And I don't step even further, everyone equitably. And the answer to all of that goes back to slavery. So I am now reading verbatim from the article on Reconstructing Citizenship from the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture. But I think I'm not gonna edit it because I just think it's so well said that you should all go. And that is the slide under the picture, the slide on top of the picture. That is the slide, that is the citation for the picture, as well as The article that goes along with me is talking about the misconceptions around slavery and racism in this country. So these two articles, really good resources, so good that I'm going to just verbatim read. From the nation's founding, African Americans regarded themselves as citizens. When the U.S. Constitution was ratified in 1788, it did not restrict citizenship based on race. However, it only counted enslaved people as 3/5 of a person rather than as a full citizen in state populations. Documenting citizenship or inability thereof has been established as another barrier in the system. You need citizenship to perform many tasks in the system that without do not work, like voting. But it extends so much further than voting. After the 14th Amendment was ratified in 1868, white Southerners continued to violently oppose Black civil rights. In 1870 and 1871, Congress passed 3 laws known as the Enforcement Acts, which invoked the power of the federal government under the 14th Amendment to intervene when states failed to protect the rights of citizens. The Enforcement Act specifically targeted the Ku Klux Klan for conspiring to prevent Black men from voting. During federal grand jury investigations, hundreds of African Americans came forward to testify about being terrorized by the Klan, the KKK. In South Carolina, this testimony led to the indictment of 220 Klansmen for civil rights violations, but only 5 were ultimately tried and convicted. But from recollection from today, various groups in society have had their citizenship status and civil rights ignored or redefined through executive order or legislation, in demanding to be included and recognized as we the people, whose rights the Constitution protects. These Americans have challenged the nation to fulfill its founding promises of liberty, equality, and justice for all. Citizenship, then, has just been used as another basis for discrimination. So this cycle of plantation capitalism that we're still on brings it back every single day of our lives, no matter where you are in the workplace. Next slide. Now we're going to do a different Jamboard session. This question relates to citizenship, and that question is, how does citizenship relate or impact me in my professional and personal life? We're going to do the same exercise as before. I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and then we're going to come back to talk.
Sorry, have you shared the link on the chat?
It's the same link, so I'm going to read.
Same one.
the same. Yes, and this is something that I haven't mentioned before. You can definitely answer the question in the chat, which is what I noticed now, and I just added here. Thank you so much for participating. We have some answers here. It's great. We have immigration policy meant for national labor protection in terms of quota and taxation. You're absolutely right. Citizenship gives you rights and duties. Yes, and that's the thing. It doesn't really matter what part of the world we are in. This is something that applies to all of us. There's people that are stateless on account of certain things that apply to them. Many industries, countries only allowing professionals and skilled immigrants. And that's part of this overall systemic exclusion that we're seeing globally, and this system of values that who's valuable versus who's not. You not only see it in the workplace, you also see it in general in the immigration system in general. And it's really, and it's really, it stands out. It really does stand out. The feeling of belonging personally make more in comfort and safe in professional life. It could make the desire of making better things. Exactly. And that's what I want to inspire from this conversation with you. The desire to do better things, to function in better systems, to go the step further and develop systems that maybe work better than other systems that have been used before. Recognizing that we're not perfect, and perfection does come from that colonialist, imperialistic mindset. But these feelings where people assume that we have certain knowledge or certain representation because we wear certain clothing, or because we look a certain way, or because we live a certain language, or because we come from a certain place, is not great. And then from citizens to status depends your right to work or not work in some countries. Exactly. So it goes back to that system of plantation capitalism that determines whether people get access to work or not. So let's finish off this presentation. If we could go back to the slides. So it's important then to break silence and set boundaries. How do I do that? I've come up with a little bit of a system to do that. First, it comes from your own motivations and goals. Mine is long-term growth regardless of citizenship status. My goal, that is my motivation. I want to grow a little bit, be better a little bit today than I was yesterday. So how am I going to do that? I have that clear motivation and I have specific goals. I have metrics, so presentations that I want to give with certain entities throughout the year, etc. Goals that you can measure and you can see them moving somewhere. And for me, it's getting my words down. I get nervous and I freak out and I forget my words. So if you forget your words, those are your powers. Unfortunately, how this capitalistic system works, those words and how you express them are your power. And when we're dealing with diverse minds and abilities, that becomes a whole nother concept, right? Like, how are you going to get those words right, sounding to like get you to the power that you need? That's a different question, right? But getting your words down is important so that you know what it is that you want to communicate and why, and what is your examples of that. Then you go through your power analysis. So if I'm presenting this to my boss, what is my boss most likely to say? And going around the questions of like, not only what is most likely to say, do I need the buy-in of someone else before I go to that meeting so that it can make more of an impact when I make that ask? And that's a whole nother thing, right? The power analysis, like how are you going to analyze the situation, the person or the organization that you're in the issue that you're addressing to talk about it, right? To break that silence. And then when you're actually in there, it really sometimes does look like a negotiation through question and interaction and sharing of what it is that you need in tension with what it is that you must have, right? So there was this job that I needed to have an accommodation to go to therapy. I needed to go to therapy once a week. It had to do with some recovery I was in, and I needed therapy. Eventually therapy schedule changed, so I needed to go to therapy every other week. And my instinct as a product of capitalism was that I was like, okay, so if you're changing me this, then I need to go back to work and not work every other, and like not be able to get out early every other Friday. She's like, no, that's part of your accommodation still. Like what you must have is that you need to make these appointments every other week, but now you have this power to keep your accommodation because you could still use that hour for self-care and keep going because you're not doing anything wrong. It's still an accommodation, and we said you needed an accommodation to go and do this. So it's also very important for you to also question where you're coming from in your mindset so that you're not setting yourself up for a trap. Because that was really nice. I could get out of work early on Fridays. Next slide. I really want to leave you with a very important message that has been very important for me in guiding thus far, and that is, if not you, then who? Next slide. We do offer student coaching, and next slide. And we do need your evaluation for this presentation. For us, it's really important to continue building from spaces of building foundations together rather than, spitting out information at people without their feedback. So we're very grateful for all of this information that you've provided on discretion and citizenship today. And we would love for you to complete that evaluation so that you can complete even more content as well as provide your feedback for the work that we provided today. And next slide. All right, so this is when we do questions and answers. Does anyone have any questions?
Do we have anyone who wants to speak?
Next slide. Let's change it to slide and leave that one on the background while we do questions. And yeah, does anyone have any questions?
I do have one. If someone wants to ask, then they can raise your hand so we know. But I was, well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. It got me really thinking. And so I was trying to imagine an example of what good setting a boundary at the workplace look like, right? And what are your recommendations? For instance, let's say I'm having a hard time with my supervisor because perhaps he asks me for things I don't know how to do. And whenever I ask for feedback, he doesn't have much time for me. And I need to have a conversation to say, well, I would really appreciate if you could give me some constructive feedback. But then I'm afraid, because I don't want him to be thinking that, well, I don't want to bother, like all these kind of situations. How could you tackle this in a workplace? What setting a boundary look like in this context? How should I approach this?
Profile straight. This is someone that is in your superior.
Yes, my superior.
Are you making mistakes?
Well, I do my tasks, but I'm not sure if I'm doing them okay. And he doesn't provide any feedback. And I feel he's very busy, so I don't want to
Okay, so you don't have really access to feedback, and you are unsure about how to, whether even you can talk about it, right? Like maybe you're crazy and this is just normal and you just need to do it. First of all, silence is never the option, so please don't rely on silence. Second, breaking silence is important because you need to establish what are your goals. If your goal is to be overworked, underpowered, and in your same cycle that you're going through and you've experienced already, then definitely don't do anything. You're in the right cycle. You're in the right track. If you want to do something to kind of change that cycle, then you're going to have to inject different kinds of things. What are those things? It depends on you and what you have and what's the situation like. For me, in my case with my boss, where I was being and the problem that I had was it was me and my team, and I didn't really have a good conversation prior to bringing it up with the team. And even if I did have the conversation, there was a specific team member that couldn't understand that saying no was an option, because I wanted to ask for funding so that we could get another person hired. But I couldn't illustrate how we could, how we did have work for another person to come, because this one person kept saying that she could do all the work. But she couldn't. So I needed to wait until she made a ton of different mistakes, by which point she had lost credibility and capacity, which there shouldn't have been. But in that situation, she wasn't able to say no, which led her to demise. Like she was eventually fired from that job. And the other flip side, where you need to talk to your supervisor, you need to talk every time that you feel some kind of discomfort, any comfort. Do it as quick as possible. Address it in the butt, even if it means that you are someone's sore thumb. Whatever, it doesn't matter, because speaking up will build up your credibility with that person over time. So they will try to avoid triggering that response from you. Therefore, you want to motivate them to give you what it is that you need. So if it is that you need feedback, you need specific time apart to meet with your supervisor, to not necessarily even talk about this feedback that you need, but talking about them. Who are they? What are their motivations? How are they moved? How do they relate to the thing? And maybe in a next meeting that you have in 2 days or next week, you talk about the feedback and you bring it from a point of view of like, how you say, I had a boss who she always wanted to push for progress no matter what. So it was like, how you say you want to push for progress no matter what? Right. But then does it make sense to you that someone needs to declare a disability, have special permission from their doctor, and a high degree beyond a bachelor's degree to be able to receive that kind of respect? Does that make sense? And then that kind of made me look dumb, because I feel like I'm asking a stupid question. But these are the words that this person had said to me previously. And their response was within squarely of listen, we are a workplace, these are the laws. And if this is what you needed to get to where you're at, that's what you need to get to where you're at. Let's get accommodations for everyone. Which, you know, that's a response. It allowed me to see the purview of that person, whereas my purview is like, why can't everyone just have access to that kind of flexibility regardless of what they are, their positions, or their access to a doctor? But that's really the importance of being able to have those conversations so that you can see and that you can identify where things can be moved or not before making assumptions and just being in silence.
Well, I really like what you said about kind of identifying the need of the other person, right? Like in this case, your supervisor said, oh, this person said, okay, we need to make always process. So her need, his need, their need is like process. And probably in my situation, my supervisor also has their needs, their goals. And in order for him to do this, I also need something, right? And I can be better equipped to, in this case, align with my supervisor goals if I receive this feedback. So maybe I can just probably say like, I also need this so I can make you achieve this goal, right? Like a team synergy.
Exactly. And some of us, you know, I'm not an attorney by trade. We were not taught leadership or management or any of that kind of training I'm receiving now in the back end after being an experienced attorney. So, and that's part of the blind spots that we all have. So maybe your boss just doesn't have the words to give you feedback. So maybe you can come in and say like, listen, I really want to be really good at my job. I see that I'm giving you this work. I don't necessarily know what's happening with it afterwards. Can I get some feedback to be better so that it's better for you on the back end? And what is feedback? Feedback can be questions about your information, but also in general, the establishment of a relationship so that you can bring it to the next level. And that's that though. I do need to get going. Thank you so much. Yes.
So basically, thank you, Iris. For today, I'm leaving with many reflections on boundaries, on assertiveness, communication, and how we can. These are great tools for us to assert our power and our discretion in our workplace. So we can stay in touch with you. Here you have everyone, all the information, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, connect with Iris, and easy way to do that, find Iris on LinkedIn, send her a connection request, and then she can share all the other means to be in touch. Anyway, we're gonna share this afterwards. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you so much, Iris, for sharing your time and making us all reflect and think.
Definitely, I want to. If not you, then who? Have a good rest of your day, guys.
Have everyone a great day. And remember to connect with Iris through LinkedIn. Thank you, Iris. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. And I hope you do reflect, everyone, about what is discretion, what is power, and how you can apply these little ideas to your internship, right? We all may experience sometimes situations like the one I have me with my own supervisor where I don't receive feedback. And maybe if we come from this different mindset where we can include some of the ideas that Iris shared with us today, that can be really helpful. So hope you all have a wonderful day, wherever you are, and you have a wonderful rest of the week. See you next time in another session of our webinar. Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.